Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today you're joining us as we navigate some really key voyages from the age of exploration.
Right. A pretty transformative period in history.
Definitely. And, you want to grasp the core of these historical events, maybe without getting totally bogged down in every single detail. And that's our aim today.
Exactly. We've looked at notes focusing on what these expeditions set out to do and, what actually happened.
Yeah, so our mission here is to pull out the really vital insights, the important nuggets, and understand why these journeys still matter, why they're significant for you today.
We're not just like listing names and dates. That's not the goal. We're exploring the ambitions, the methods they used, and the consequences. These were huge undertakings.
So what were the goals? And how did these trips literally reshape the world map?
Good place to start.
Okay, let's kick off with Spain. Their determined push westward. The big idea, the main goal, was finding a sea route to Asia, right? By sailing west across the Atlantic.
Yeah. They were chasing the riches of the East. Spices, silks, all that stuff. That was the dream.
But what's really fascinating, looking at the accounts, is the massive detour.
Totally unexpected. Instead of Asia, they bump into an entirely new landmass, the Americas.
It was completely unforeseen. Just imagine that shift in perspective.
This has been staggering. A real hang on a minute.
Moment.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Like, what just happened? And it wasn't just a quick look either. The sources show Spain moved pretty fast to establish colonies. So this accidental find really did fundamentally alter global history.
It certainly did. And, if you look around, other European powers had similar ideas floating around, like John Cabot sailing for England.
Yes, Cabot. His goal, much like Spain's initial one, was also finding that westward sea route to Asia.
And what happens?
Well, his voyage leads to the charting or discovery of North America.
So similar outcome, different spot. And then just like Spain down south, England subsequently set up colonies there.
It really highlights this powerful kind of shared European ambition, doesn't it? Reaching Asia was the prize, and different nations were trying similar strategies across the Atlantic.
But that brings up an interesting contrast because not everyone was looking west. Portugal, they took a totally different approach. Vasco da Gama.
Right. Da Gama sailed in the opposite direction. His goal was to pioneer a sea route to Asia, but by going around Africa.
A much longer route, but maybe seen as more direct, eastward.
Yeah, exactly. And his success was huge for Portugal. It established these crucial trade routes, bypassing the old overland ones.
So it shows there were different ways people were tackling that central problem.
Yeah.
How do we get to Asia by sea?
Then we get to Ferdinand Magellan. Now, his expedition, that was ambitious on a whole different level. What was he trying to do?
Magellan's aim was, well, nothing less than circumnavigating the globe, to sail all the way around the world for the first time.
Wow.
And even though he didn't personally make it the whole way, his crew did, the impact was just enormous.
Yeah. The notes detail discovering loads of new islands, territories, seeing plants and animals nobody in Europe knew existed. It expanded the known world dramatically.
And crucially, it proved, practically that global sea travel was possible. You could actually sail all the way around. This really starts to weave the world together in a new way, opening up potential global trade routes.
Yeah, you see that interconnectedness really starting to form.
So if we pull back and look at all these voyages together, what are the main takeaways?
Well, we see common threads, right? The big driver was reaching Asia.
Definitely. But also a variety of methods. Going west, going east around Africa, and ultimately sailing all the way around.
And the outcomes. They were massive and varied. Unexpected discovery of whole continents, the start of colonial empires, new trade networks.
And just a huge expansion of global knowledge. What people knew about the planet fundamentally changed.
Precisely. These weren't just boat trips. They redrew the world map and completely reshaped how different cultures interacted. And we still feel those effects today, don't we?
Absolutely. Which leads us to maybe a final thought for you, the listener, to mull over.
Okay.
Consider the long-term impact of those accidental discoveries, like the Americas, compared to the outcomes they were actually aiming for, like the trade routes to Asia. What does that contrast between the intended goal and the unexpected result tell us about exploration itself and maybe about how progress actually happens?
That's a great question to ponder. Something about unintended consequences.
Yeah.
Interesting.